Hi, my name is Jared Wagner. I'm a controls engineer with Whitman, and today we're going over our ease of use programming tool, the QuickNew Wizard. I've got Bruce here helping me out, and he's gonna run through, create a program, and we're just gonna show how easy it is. All right, so Bruce, you can run through this, answer the questions the way that you want the robot to drive. There's no wrong answers. For the first question here, you can choose whether you want the robot to be able to handle inserts or not.
Do inserts and parts.
All right, sounds good. And whether you have a runner or not. So either choose parts or parts and runner.
Parts and runner.
All right, let's go for the whole thing. What you can do here is we have a reject routine where you can run startup rejects. We'll make a parameter that says you're going to scrap the first, 2 or 3 parts, and you can choose to do that and drop those parts in a separate location.
Okay. Yeah,
We'll go for that as well.
Yep.
And our quality control, what you can do is you can take a part every so many cycles or with a button on the home screen and place that in a different location for inspection.
Okay.
And down here for degating, what you can do is you can use a nipper to cut the runner, make it smaller for dropping into a granulator. You can hit yes or no to that.
Yeah, we'll do that.
All right. And then for eco mode, you've got to have eco mode. It slows down the robot, allows it to match the mold cycle, and that way you aren't wasting energy or putting excess wear on the machine.
Let's do that.
All right, perfect. So when you're done here, you can hit next. So now we have our insert questions. You can go through and answer these how you want your cell to be handled. You can set the first inserts by hand, or you can do it with the robot. Some people like to load the mold by hand.
Okay, we'll insert by robot.
Okay. For our insert scrap parts, what you can do is run a couple cycles without inserting parts. If you don't want to waste your inserts, you know you're going to throw those first couple of parts away. That way, you don't waste your inserts that might cost a lot of money.
We'll leave it unknown.
Okay. For our insert order, what you can do is you can either place the insert before or after you pick the part, depending on your mold setup and whether you have clearance or not, and how your end of arm tool is set up.
Yeah.
All right.
Before.
Okay. And for our inserts held with, this is how your end of arm tool is set up. So you can say I'm holding the inserts with the vacuum, the gripper, or both, and that really depends on what you have on your end of arm tool.
We'll do gripper.
Okay, perfect. And you can have insert monitoring you can have gripper monitoring for that. So if you have a sensor on the gripper cylinder, you can make sure that it's in the right position. If you drop the inserts, it'll stop the cycle and you won't end up damaging anything.
Okay.
You can hit yes on that, and when you're good, hit next. Right here, we can have up to 16 insert positions, but right now we're showing just one. And this is what's gonna hold, what gripper or what vacuum is gonna hold the insert for this one position. So if you hit configure there, you can go ahead and choose up here under equipment which grippers you want. Right now we have gripper 2 set up, but you can also add more to that, or you can even change that from 2 to 3 or 4. So if that looks good, you can hit INS to insert it. And there you go. So now gripper 2 and gripper 3 are holding the inserts at this one location. So if that looks good, hit close and then next. All right, so for our runner, what's gonna be holding our runner? Grippers, vacuums, or both? We've got gripper and we've got gripper 1 configured. Same situation as before, where you can choose what your end of arm tool is set up for. So if that looks good, you can scroll past there. Got gripper monitoring just like before. And right here under activation, go ahead and click before ejection. And you get a nice graphic up here that shows what the robot is gonna do. You've got your title, you've got your description, but you've also got an animation that reinforces what's going on there. Now, if you hit after ejection, you'll notice that the gripper closes after the ejectors come forward. So it gives you a little bit more context. Right down there underneath runner handling, you can drop the runner with the part, or before or after, depending on whether you're dropping in a granulator or on the conveyor with the part. So whatever you'd like to choose for that.
Do after.
All right. If that's good, hit next. And for placing, this is really similar to the gripper and the insert. You can choose whether to hold the parts with vacuum, gripper, or both. If that looks good, you can go ahead and hit next. And we have a similar situation with the configure right here. You can hit configure and you can add vacuums to that or leave it as is. And if you want to add a vacuum, click it and then click INS. There you go. And now down here, we have our conveyor behavior. If you scroll down a little bit, let's say you have, 4 different parts you want to stack across on a conveyor belt. You could place those 4 parts, answer no to the indexing, and then on this last part, answer yes. And that'll allow you to place 4 parts and then index the conveyor belt. We also have palletizing and bulk filling that you can do on the full version of this interview. So you can go ahead and hit next. For our reject parts, if you're dropping them on a cooling conveyor, you go ahead and hit yes and have that index every single time you drop a reject. Go ahead, hit next. And for our quality control, you can have this controlled from an interval. So we'll make a parameter that says after every 100 parts, 1,000 parts, you drop a cycle into that quality control chute. And you can also have an auto switch on your home screen. So if you want both of those, they're yes. Otherwise, you can change those to no. Mold entry, if you're doing inserts, we default to a traditional mold entry. But for our parts and runners, you can use our smart removal that enters the mold at speed and has a little quicker cycle time. But for right now, hit next. For this part break, what this does is this backs away from the mold slowly, and that way you don't rip the parts off the end of arm tool. If you want, change that to yes, and we'll create a parameter that has that acceleration, that relative distance. So if this looks good, hit next. And here's our degating screen. On the full version of the interview, you can have 9 different degating positions. But here's where you choose what activates your degating cylinder, and also how you're going to approach that degator. If first back with the X, then down with the Y, or down with the Y and then back with the X. So go ahead, hit which one direction you want, and if that looks good, hit next. All right, and before you hit create, go down to overview in the bottom left, and you've got an overview of all the questions that you've chose, as well as some that we've have default selections for. And if something doesn't look quite right, you can quickly go to that page, change it. But if everything looks good, scroll down to the bottom, and then hit finish and create right below there. There you go. So what's happening right now is the robot's taking the answers to all your questions, as well as what utilities are present on the robot, whether we have servo axes, pneumatic axes, and building a program based on that. What we can also do is we can take over parameters from your previous program. So if you've already taught your mold position, you don't have to reteach that. You don't have to reteach your placing position if you're just adding a degator in there. So go ahead and hit yes to that takeover. All right, so now what we're gonna do is, if you hit reference button, it's gonna be right up here. And if you hold that down, what we're gonna do is we're gonna reference the robot, and then you should be good to go. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take that pendant, and we are going to start our virtual press. And now what we've got here is we've got a notification. So you can program these yourselves, but in the QuickNew Wizard, we're using this to give a message to the operator and tell them to check the mold. We want to make sure that there's no inserts in the mold because we're going to be placing inserts in the mold. As long as the mold looks good, which it does, we're going to hit acknowledge. And there we go, the robot starts moving. Now, what was created here, if you click text on the bottom left, you've got a full program, if you scroll down, that was created without having to go in and program any of this. And these are all based on what you chose for your selections and what the robot is capable of. And you've got a couple hundred lines of code here that you made with about 5 minutes of an interview. You also have, if you go to quick, on the bottom center, and if you scroll down, we've got all these parameters that were created that have names, descriptions, and animations where appropriate. And if you create a QuickNew program for all your robots, you're gonna have consistency between all your programs so that if you have an operator go from one robot to the next, they're always gonna know that your reference travel placing position is gonna be named that, it's gonna have that animation and have that description. So, thank you very much for your help, Bruce.